Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Feminine Ascendant Circle podcast. I'm your host, Katie TT, and today I have Christine DeLozier on the line. We're going to be talking about acupuncture and sex and how those two things come together. And I'm really excited to speak with her today because it's a very unique and niche topic that a lot of people want to hear about. So with that, Christine, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what you do and how you help people.
Sure. So I am an acupuncturist in private practice, specializing in sexual health. Most of the time when we think about great sex, that sort of thing, we think about a psychological phenomenon. But physiologically, great sex is when our nerves fire rapid, strong impulses to and from the genitals, or rather when the chi is flowing. And it's when we have adequate blood flow, and it's when our sex hormones are balanced, or when, yin and yang are in the proper proportions, if you will. So I focus on that with patients. I see male and female patients who come in, whether they're looking for stronger erections or they want better lubrication. One of the biggest things I see in my female clients is libido and just achieving climax, trying to help boost their ability and strength and ease of climax, that sort of thing. But one of my passions that I kind of brought into that arena was my passion, for food. So I also work with patients on developing a dietary strategy for supporting their treatment goals. So it's it's really holistic. We will focus on their diet, but also on acupuncture and on, kind of the big picture.
Very cool. And, that's interesting. That's definitely been my experience of acupuncture so far, is that you all are very holistic. My acupuncturist is the same way. I remember after my first appointment, she sent me home with homework
and
other things to kind of stock my shelves with. So it's very cool. So with that, and I know you kind of started to answer this question, but for those not quite yet versed in acupuncture, what's the general background on it? Like, how does it work mechanically? You started to talk about, right, how the nervous system and blood flow all plays into this. So how does that all work? And when I ask that question, I have in mind things like, what I've heard, right? But I'm not an expert, right? But what I've heard about like meridian points and those sorts of things. So how does that work mechanically, just overall?
So, we have a traditional understanding of acupuncture and we have a biomedical understanding, and they're both, we can see they're distinct, but they're just different ways of looking at kind of the same thing. So traditionally, we understand that acupuncture moves chi on the meridians or the channels of the body. And when chi is blocked, well, first of all, let me tell you that chi is the vital life source for human beings. And when chi is blocked or insufficient, we have disease, or we have ill health, or we have emotional, roller coaster or emotional swings, that sort of thing. When chi is abundant and free flowing, we have no pain, we have great sex, we have harmony. And so the goal then is to move the chi and promote, its free flow. How that translates to biomedicine is this, these meridians translate to the vascular system and the nervous system. And the reason that that's important is because every single substance produced by our body, every neurotransmitter, every hormone is ultimately controlled by the nervous system. So when we stimulate pathways in the nervous system, we affect change in the biochemistry of the body. And we see that in research. We know that we affect dopamine. We know that we affect norepinephrine, histamine, cortisol, which is a stress hormone. We can measure this. So that's kind of how acupuncture works, is it pretty much operates on the nervous system or on these meridians that carry chi and blood throughout the body.
Very cool. Wow. So I love how you just kind of like tied the traditional and the biomedical together. That really helps, I think, because, I think a lot of people are aware, right, that there's like an association. I mean, at least here in California where I live, acupuncture is covered by my health insurance. I mean, maybe not everywhere, but clearly there are medical benefits to these sorts of things. So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
So with that, how can acupuncture help people with sex? How does it work? You started to touch upon, the physiology of it, the nervous system, how it can help with things like libido, climax, even lubrication. So how does that work exactly?
Well, first of all, we try to harmonize the body in general. In a body that is harmonized, those things will naturally come easier anyways. But specifically, one of the points that I often use with patients is, in an intimate part of the body, it's on the perineum, which is in between the vagina and the anus. And it's a major crossing point of nerves associated with sexual function. Mm-hmm. So when we stimulate those nerve pathways, we automatically bring the body's attention to those areas, and, blood flows. So wherever we stimulate those nerve pathways, it naturally flows to that area. Now, we all know that males need adequate blood flow just to even have sex, to even get an erection. But most people don't realize that blood flow is critical for female sexual function as well. It precedes lubrication. So in order for lubrication to even happen, we need blood flow. And it also affects sexual pleasure, ability to climax. So just like the male, engorges with blood, the female clitoris does engorge with blood as well. And after that engorgement, we are much more sensitive to the touch of ourselves or our partner's touch, which means that pleasure is enhanced, climax is easier. All of those things kind of, fall from that. So acupuncture helps in a couple of ways. It helps increase blood flow, and it also, helps balance the biochemistry, and it will definitely, stimulate the pathways of sexuality.
Wow, that is pretty incredible that it allows people to, to resolve those sorts of things, or I guess enhance them, right? If they're already working and they want them to work better.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, and it does. And the thing about it is it works really well, too. That's one of the reasons I decided to specialize in it. It wasn't my passion for, sex so much as that I saw my patients having great results. And I said, I really want to do more of this. I want to specialize in this because this is something that brings a lot of value to people's lives. But we can't just, focus on that one thing. That's without treating something that's even deeper of a root of healthy sexual function. And that's things like, what we're putting into our bodies, the, environmental exposure that we're having that can also affect, nerve conduction and blood flow and all of those things, and addressing as well, even things like our stress, so we always want to, you can go and see your acupuncturist, and you're definitely, I can't say definitely, but you will get some results. Some people have amazing results. It kind of varies by the patient. But if you want to have like the best long-term great sex, you're going to also want to pay attention to these other things. For example, something like leafy greens. Leafy greens are bitter in flavor. And, in a healthy diet for sex, you want to balance the 5 flavors, which are, bitter, salty, sweet, sour. Let me see. And there's another one in there. Bitter, let's see. Bitter. Oh, and acrid. So what we neglect in our diets is we neglect the the bitter flavor, which is leaves, and we favor things like the salty and the sweet flavor. But leaves do things like they help clear heat from the body. That's how we traditionally understand them. And they also, biomedically, they help balance out things like testosterone. So leafy greens reduce the stress hormone cortisol, which sabotages testosterone and therefore will sabotage our libido. And it also kind of luxuriates the meridian. So all those antioxidants in the leaves, they soften the delicate inner lining of those blood vessels, the lining of the meridian walls. And they also strengthen nerve conduction with all their antioxidants. So they just bring a lot to the table. So when we combine acupuncture and we combine the food that we're eating, and throw in dealing with our crazy hectic lifestyles, we can have amazing sex.
Oh, it's really incredible. So I love that you brought the nutrition piece into this, because I think that's one thing that people ought to remember too, is that that old expression, you are what you eat, right? It will help, and it'll just enhance everything you're already doing. So not to mention that, and I don't want to sidetrack the conversation at all, but there's so many foods, right, that can also enhance sexual pleasure, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I talked about in my book, is not only the, all of the things that can improve sexual health, but then we have, aside from anything we might consider aphrodisiac, are a whole slew of foods that just promote sexual health. They promote strong nerve conduction, they promote vascular health, they promote hormonal balance. So, absolutely.
Very cool. So that being said, what is well, actually, first I had a surprise question that I'm going to ask, because I know you were talking a little bit before about the perineum, and for someone who hasn't tried acupuncture yet, they might be wondering, like, is this lady going to, try to poke me somewhere uncomfortable, right? But what I want to share with you on that, and what I want to ask you is to clarify, there are certain meridian points that you poke people with that affect different parts of the body, right? Like, I've gone to acupuncture and I may have like a back issue, but they put needles in my neck, right? So just to kind of assuage maybe some nervousness on the part of someone who might be thinking, like, what is that going to be about? Like, what is a typical process, right? This is something uncomfortable or, risque in that way. You know what I mean? People would
well, first of all, just to clarify, there will be no surprise perineum needles.
Stabbing. Yeah. I just wanted to ask that awkward question and get it out of the way, because I know there's someone out there thinking it or wondering it. So.
No, that's the sort of thing that I would sit down with my patient and I would say, for what you're coming in here for and for your presentation, I would like to needle your perineum. If you're comfortable with that, we can go ahead and do it. If not, that's okay. There are other points that we can use. That's the one I want to use because it really is right in that pathway. Yeah. So no, yeah, definitely no surprises like that. But no, I mean, everything, you'll go into your acupuncturist and you'll have a conversation with that person. They will ask you a whole bunch of questions before they decide what needles they want to use with you. And it's not just going to be what you're coming in there for. So if I were to have 10 patients come in complaining of headaches, for example, I would give them 10 different needle prescriptions because each of their constitutions is going to be different. Mm-hmm. The reason for headaches, it can be vascular, it can be nerve, it can be neck tension. Just, as similarly, all of those patients may have yin deficiency, they may have qi stagnation, they may have any number of different diagnoses, which are going to lead us to a different treatment. And then finally, those patients may have headaches on different meridians. One patient may have headaches on the stomach meridian, in the front. Another patient may have it on the gallbladder meridian, so that also affects where we place needles.
Yeah, that's always been really intriguing to me. Whenever I go to the acupuncturist, I'm like, I wonder what that links to. I get like a needle, and I get like needles on the foot or hands. I'm like, oh, I wonder where that goes to. No idea.
Yeah,
but it's fascinating to me, but I have no idea where it goes. Cool. So let's see. Given that, what is your most frequently asked, question, concern, or ailment that people come to you to solve?
Would you say you mean sexually or just in general? So all acupuncturists, we all treat a lot of neck pain, back pain, that sort of thing. That's just because insurance companies typically pay for that. Insurance companies don't pay for everything. They pay for what has a lot of research to support its efficacy. And acupuncture is really great for a lot of a way broader set of problems. But the ones that have actually been studied and proven with science are things like neck pain, back pain, nausea, things like that. So we see a lot of patients for that because their insurance companies will pay for it. But what I see the most of in, because I specialize in sexual health, is people looking for stronger erections and people looking to improve libido. So you would think, what I would think after reading my book and looking at what's out there, I would say one of the things that females should be complaining more about is difficulty having an orgasm, because this disparity in pleasure between male and female is huge, really huge. And not only that, but then there, of course, you add in the cultural, notions that women don't need to be pleasured, or that it takes too long, or that it's not, worth somebody's time to make sure that we're satisfied. That would probably, that should be number one. But I see a lot of women who are looking for improved lubrication, dealing with hot flashes and associated issues, or just simply looking to improve libido. So that's a big issue, I feel like, in relationships where one partner has a higher libido than the other, and it can cause a lot of tension between them. So that's, I would say those are the things that I treat most. Oh, and I treat premature ejaculation as well.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. So it's so funny because when you say the erection thing for men, I thought, oh God, of course. With all the spam emails, and I'm like, I'm a woman. Why do I get spam emails about making your dick bigger? And I just think, oh my gosh, there might be such a need for this out there. Otherwise, I guess I wouldn't get that.
One thing that I'm always wondering though is, like, there's so many ads out there for bigger dicks. Mm-hmm. But how about if you look at the percentage of guys who actually know how to perform oral sex, it's like, in the single digits, as far as percentage wise. So you'd think more people would be focusing on learning how to pleasure a woman, because having a big dick isn't enough to do it. You know what I mean? It's just not.
Skills, Christine, skills. Yes. No, I love it. I agree with that. Yeah. 1,000%. That's so interesting. Wow. So, I just thought of something kind of funny. Honestly, you could market your services as better than Viagra, honestly. So, you know what I mean? Because isn't that, it's a holistic, and, I don't know what the long-term effects of something like Viagra are, but I'm sure there's probably side effects that people don't like. It's expensive,
and
right.
For a more natural approach, and it's not sustainable. It's a kind of a short-term gain. Whereas something like, taking care of yourself is long-term.
Yes, it is. It's the best thing to do long-term overall. Well, I love that. Wow, you really do a lot with that. So that's fascinating to me. And you talk about women and orgasm too, and how just having a focus there. And, there's different kinds of orgasms too. And I think, we as women, there's just like a plethora and like this whole world of expansion that's available to us in that arena. So when you talk about things like that, that's really, really, I'm just super excited to hear that you're doing that kind of work, because it's so needed in the world for women and their sexual health and pleasure. Yeah.
That's a conversation I have, like, with when I do see like this discrepancy in libido. One of the things that I try to, as tactfully as possible address is how much of low libido is truly a difference in physiology, and how much of it is simply not having a partner who knows enough to pleasure, you or has the knowledge to pleasure you or the motivation to, because, pleasuring a woman takes a lot longer in many cases. It can take, 45 minutes, even, up to an hour or more between just getting aroused and orgasm, whereas a male pleasuring is a lot more easy. So if you're used to chronically being disappointed in bed, how high would your libido be? I mean, how much would you want to keep doing that behavior, where you engage in something that pleases one partner and not the other?
Yeah, absolutely. After a while of maybe feeling let down, I could see how that would be just kind of a low libido might be linked to just feeling bummed out.
Yeah.
Bed, right. That totally makes sense. You mentioned before the psychology around it. I can totally see how that would happen. Wow, that's fascinating. So what are some unexpected bonuses of acupuncture work? We've started to talk about this, and you talked about blood flow and the nervous system, which I imagine, you start doing a few areas, this impacts other things around the body, not just, sexual health is really important, but beyond sexual health, even more. Like, what kind of cool, I guess, results or benefits have you seen as a result of this kind of stuff?
It's kind of unpredictable. I've seen everything, really. I've seen people who, they come in for neck pain and then they tell me, I've slept like a baby for, since I saw you last, and I've been having insomnia. I never mentioned to you that I had insomnia, but I do have insomnia, or that their mood has improved. I've even had people say phobias have gotten better. This one person who had a phobia of bridges, and we were treating him for anxiety, but he noticed that his phobia for bridges, he just didn't have the same visceral response when he would, be approaching a bridge that he used to have. Wow,
that's fascinating. So phobias, sleeping, that is cool.
Yeah, it's amazing what happens in the body when you start to balance the core,
Yeah. No, that's incredible. And for someone who, by the way, like, I'm a light sleeper myself, I can get to sleep after a little while, but I'm always a light sleeper. I always wonder, like, what is the solution for this? I would love to just, sleep like a baby. And especially because I think, recent relationship partners over the last few years, I always managed to find, a guy who could sleep like a log. And I'm always so jealous. I'm like, what the hell are you doing that I'm not doing, where you can just sleep like that and snore and whatever. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, first of all, the snoring is keeping me awake. Okay, so let's figure that out. And second of all, what do I need to be doing to be sleeping like a log? Because I would love to wake up just completely and utterly rested like that. So that's really cool. I think that, yeah.
The most common kind of side effect that people didn't expect is just feeling an increased sense of well-being, that sort of thing. Because we know that it affects dopamine. There are a lot of studies showing that acupuncture affects the availability of dopamine. So, just people feel generally more at ease. Although I have seen patients cry, maybe they've had like an emotional release following acupuncture. That's happened. It's not as common.
Emotional release. That's powerful too.
Yeah.
Pent up emotions. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So given that, how can people reach out to you and what are your offerings? So I know you mentioned a book and that's exciting. So I'm wondering if we could share that or whatever you'd like to share with the audience today. How can they get in touch?
Sure. Yeah. So I just wrote a book called Diet for Great Sex. And in it, I kind of combined the wisdom of ancient Chinese medicine along with tons of scientific research, but it's kind of in a fun, interesting, easy to read kind of way, just examining what foods are good to strengthen nerve conduction, for more pleasure, increase blood flow, balance sex hormones, all that sort of thing. So that's available on Amazon. It's called Diet for Great Sex. And you can find me at dietforgreatsex.com or just my name, ChristineDeLozier.com. And I'm on social media as well at Diet for Great Sex.
Awesome. So folks, reach out and get the book. I'm going to be picking it up at Amazon as soon as we got off this call. And awesome. Yeah, that's really exciting. So well, congratulations on the book as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure having you today. And for everyone listening, thank you for joining us. And let us know if you have any questions. Feel free to reach out to Christine directly, get on her website, get on her book ASAP, and we'll see you next time.